My name is Amal Nirkadkar. I'm the CEO of Patient Prism. I'm delighted to welcome Brian Colao from Dykema here. He's the director of their dental service organization industry group at Dykema. And most of you guys know who he is and have heard him speak at various conferences across the country on various aspects related to dental support or service organizations. And Brian, welcome to our studios this morning, and tell us a little bit about what you do for the DSO industry.
Well, as director, thank you, by the way, for having me here. As director of our DSO group, we represent, at last count, about 365 DSOs in all 50 states. And what we focus primarily on is coming up with regulatory compliant business models for DSOs nationwide, all 50 states. And I think we're in 8 Canadian provinces on top of that. And then we focus on all manner of compliance within DSOs and group practices. Any potential compliance issue that can come up, we handle. And then the last thing that we focus on is we counsel private equity investors and lenders and other folks that want to buy, sell, invest, or lend in the DSO space. And that's what our group does, and I'm the director.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen you speak at many different DSO events, and I've enjoyed your talks quite a bit. And I couldn't wait to get you in the studio to really talk about the hottest thing in dentistry today. And the word DSO is ubiquitous, whether you are at the DSO event or you're at a regular event, even at the ADA. The DSO is one of the biggest hot button topics. And really, my first segment with you, I really want to talk about what does it mean to convert. So let's say you're a group practice and you have a few locations, and you want to convert to a DSO. What does it really mean to convert, to become a DSO?
Well, first, just take a half step back. When you think of the industry right now, you think of the great evolution of dentistry and the great consolidation. And I know we're going to talk about some of these things later, but the whole industry is shifting from dentist-owned single practices or dentist-owned group practices to corporate-managed DSOs. Okay. And that's what we talk about when we say we're either reorganizing a dentist-owned business into a DSO, or through an acquisition you're becoming a DSO. And what it basically means is you're converting your organization from a dentist managed model to a more corporate managed model. Now, one thing that people sometimes get confused, it's still dentist owned and controlled. It has to be under the corporate practice of dentistry regulations. Just because you're converting to a DSO does not mean a corporation is going to own or control your dental practice. The licensed dentist will continue to own and control and make all clinical decisions related to patient care, but from a management perspective. And what we say, this means the leased premises, this means the equipment, this means any intellectual property and trade names, this means the non-clinical employees. They will all reside at the DSO level, and a DSO that most often is owned by non-dentists will now handle the non-clinical administration of the dental practice or the dental offices.
So are we taking the value that exists at the practice level? Are we shifting that up to the DSO level? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, that's precisely what we're doing. And the reason that we're doing it is because one of the primary advantages of the DSO model is it allows for participation of non-dentists into the business. Under the corporate practice of dentistry rules in virtually all the states except for a small handful, you have to be a licensed dentist to own or participate in the ownership of a dental office. What the DSO model allows us to do is to let non-dentists participate in the profits of a dental practice while still complying with the regulations.
And so when it comes time, so let's say I'm a dentist, I own a few practices, and let's say it's 5 or 6, and I want to create this structure. What's the right time? Is it the number of practices, number of employees? What have you seen in the experience that you've had? What's the right time to create the DSO structure?
That's a really, really good question. And the answer doesn't lie in the amount of offices or the number of offices. The answer lies in what your intentions are.
Okay.
If you intend to have non-dentists participate in the business, and there's very good reasons, they have all the money, right? I mean, most of the, you don't see too many dentist billionaires, but there are billions and billions of dollars have flowed into this space in the last 10 years, and it's coming from non-dentists. So, non-dentists typically pay a much higher return than dentists. So you kind of do maybe want to have them in your future plans. So if you want to have non-dentists involved in the business, you need to be a DSO. I've seen single practices convert to a DSO because there's a non-dentist. Somebody will call me. A lot of these really, really bright folks, a lot of them young, 20s and 30s, call me up, say, I just graduated business school, I have an MBA, I want to manage a dental practice, but I'm not a dentist, and we're going to start with one office. Well, if that person wants to basically participate in the profits of a single office, that MBA has to be a DSO. So we'll sometimes see a DSO for only one office when a non-dentist business person wants to basically, be responsible for managing the business. If you don't have a situation like that, what I say is when you've made the decision you're going to expand beyond one or two practices and you're going to build a group practice organization, that is the right time to convert to a DSO. We do a lot of conversions at the 2 office, 3 office.
That's amazing, actually. I did not realize that you could do it even at, you're right, actually, because there's a lot of graduating, and if you don't want to work for somebody, you want to create your own practice, but have somebody with business background help you and give them a part of that equity, or not directly, I guess. Then that's the right time.
But it's even beyond that, Amal. I've got a lot of business folks that call me up and say, I want to run a DSO. I don't have a dentist yet, but I've graduated business school. It's a great model. Dentistry is recession proof. It's very profitable. I want to basically run a DSO. And they say, what do I have to do, Brian? I said, well, you got to get a dentist first. You're not a dentist. You're going to need to find a dentist that's going to be able to own and operate your clinical functions. And then they'll come back a few weeks later and say, hey, I met a dentist, now what do I do? And often we'll start with one office, and they will literally be a one-office DSO. But the funny thing is, with your question, is it came from the business person. The business person went and tracked down the dentist and informed the dentist of this opportunity and said, will you partner with me? Versus the dentist saying, I want to bring in a business person to help enhance my operation.
Amazing insight. I did not know about this. This is fascinating. So what do you think? Let's just say it's not a new guy that's coming out of college, but I'm a dentist, and I've owned a practice for 5 years, and I'm stagnated, right? I need a new business acumen injected. So I talked to my buddy Brian, who's a savvy MBA from a nice college, and he knows business. And so as I make this transition, as I get somebody involved who's a non-dentist in my organization, which is a clinical organization until now, what challenges do dentists face as they involve this?
Well, first of all, it makes absolute perfect sense to do that. And I want to talk about that just for a couple seconds, right? Dentists went to dental school to learn how to treat patients. They didn't go to dental school to learn how to negotiate with their landlord, their leases, how to hire folks, be the director of HR, how to negotiate with the providers. These were not things that they taught at dental school. I've been asked to teach at a dental school to try to maybe interject some of these business things, but historically, those are not things that they learn. So the dentists have to do sort of on-the-job training on something that they're not skilled. It would be like me trying to do on-the-job training for launching the space shuttle into, the atmosphere. So it'd be very, very difficult, very hard to do. Some people do. I mean, some dentists are very, very smart, and they do catch on over time. But it's very, you're being asked to do something you didn't go to school for, you're not trained for, and quite frankly, is difficult. The DSO model allows you to immediately engage subject matter experts, folks that went to business school. They can't wait to negotiate leases. They can't wait to negotiate provider agreements. They're fine hiring and recruiting and everything else, and you get to implement those folks, and then the dentist owner focuses on what they went to school for, treating patients, and what you see when that happens is innovation. You see non-clinical innovations because now you have folks that are trained to do the business side, doing the business side, and then what you see often is clinical innovations because because now the dentist focuses 100% of his or her time on practicing dentistry. So when they start looking at it, they say, well, why do we schedule all these patients on Tuesday the way we do this? Well, the answer is you were too busy, and this is the way you did it for the last 5 years, and nobody went back and thought about it. But now they're thinking about it and saying, well, gosh, we need to schedule in a little different way, or we need to schedule this procedure on this day, or do this other thing on this day. So now you start to have clinical innovations. Exactly the stagnation you talked about, you've now shaken things up, and there can be clinical innovations. Now, your question, I wanted to talk about this, makes perfect sense. Your question was, what are the challenges? Well, the challenges are you just have to get attuned to the DSO model. Everything about the practice of dentistry as you've understood it since you graduated dental school is going to be a little bit different. The leasehold interest is going to be held at the DSO. The intellectual property is going to be held at the DSO. The non-clinical employees are now going to become employees of the DSO. The equipment is going to reside there, and you're going to have to now be able to integrate with a partner that's a specialist in non-clinical administrative support services. And some dentists were trained out of dental school that they have to be in charge of everything, and it can be a little unnerving to give up some of this control. That can be, a challenge. That's in a lot of ways, that's the biggest challenge.
This is a fascinating conversation. I can't wait to continue having more conversation about this industry. But the gist of that conversation is, the DSO you can convert anytime you want, as long as the key criteria is a non-dentist owner coming in into an organization. But what I'm hearing from you is that it is injecting a lot of excitement and growth in a dental practice by having people who are subject matter experts, as you said, in that field to take your practice to the next level. So.
It absolutely does that, and you don't have to have, obviously anybody can own a DSO. Dentists can own a DSO too. It allows for participation of non-dentists, which I believe is critical. It allows for incentivizing non-dentists. You can have an office manager that is terrific,
Absolutely.
but under the traditional model of a dentist-owned office, you cannot give that office manager stock in the corporation because it would be illegal because he or she is not a dentist. But under
Correct.
the DSO model, you could take that key employee and say, you know what, I'm going to give you shares. I'm going to give you an ownership interest, and now that person has skin in the game, and that person is incentivized. So to me, it lets people do what they were trained to do, and it allows for non-clinical innovations, it allows for clinical innovations, and it allows for giving everybody, dentists and non-dentists alike, skin in the game and shares to incentivize them to maximize the value of the organization.
Fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. This is going to be very useful to a lot of people in the industry to learn from our little segment here. So thank you so much again.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.